All right, welcome to Easy Insights number 11. Today is August 25th, the Friday. Corey and I, you can find us in a soybean field looking at yellow spots. So, what do we have for yellow spots out in the soybean field? This is the first indicator of seeing some yellow flaring in the field. Here's a top trifoliate from a plant we picked down the row a little bit, and you can see that we got some flaring and some yellowing. A lot of times this is being identified as a potassium deficiency late season, but what Corey and I are finding a lot and getting a lot of calls on is having some soybean cyst nematode show up in the fields. So if you want to look for soybean cyst nematode, you got to dig the root, and in this particular case I got one little root here, and right against the tip of my thumb you can see that there's a soybean cyst on there. It's going to look like a grain of salt. It's going to be very hard to see, and you're going to want to bring a bucket of water out there with you to wash all the dirt off so you can find those cysts. If you're finding cysts, again, another management strategy is go back to your seed treatment. Make sure you're using the right seed treatment out there. The other things we're seeing for yellow spots in the field is mostly diseases. Now we have 4 diseases: sudden death, brown stem rot, white mold, and septoria brown spot that are causing yellow to occur up in our soybeans. What you're going to see with each one of these, especially the white mold, brown stem rot, and SDS, is you're going to see what we call interveinal chlorosis. So interveinal chlorosis is going to look somewhat like this, where the veins are going to be nice and green, and in between the veins you're going to see some brown yellowing, some interveinal chlorosis showing up. With sudden death syndrome, you're going to want to split the pith. When you split the pith about 6 inches up from the surface or that ground, it should be white. If it's white and you have that interveinal chlorosis, you could probably indicate it as being sudden death syndrome. If it's brown in the pith, now you have brown stem rot, you're going to want to manage for brown stem rot with a variety selection, doing it that way. The other one that we're getting a lot of calls on is white mold. So you can see white mold, and this is what we're in as a patch of white mold right now. You can follow down the stalk, and where you see the white mold occur here between my fingers is where that flower was affected originally. You can see that basically that stalk is necrosing all the way down the plant, and it's stopping the flow of any nutrients going up that plant and feeding the rest of these flowers. Okay, so the last disease that you can see on almost every plant right here is septoria brown spot. So we're getting a lot of septoria brown spot showing up. It's mostly in the bottom part of the canopy, and the reason for the septoria brown spot is because we're unconditionally or unseasonably wet this year, and we also have some cooler conditions, so we're seeing a lot more septoria than normal. The one thing that's occurring because of all these yellow spots showing up in the soybean field is I encourage you to go out and look for parts of your soybean canopy and look for what you're seeing on the ground. So here in this spot you can see part of the canopy, and you can see several different things. Here I've looked and gathered the pods around that are being aborted off that soybean plant. So you can see these are some 3-bean, 2-bean, 1-bean pods that are actually being thrown off on the ground. The other thing you can see here, if you look real close, is we got a bunch of little flowers and some clusters of flowers that have been aborted earlier that are falling off. So the way the soybean manages yield is it manages yield by each one of these trifoliates being connected to a flowering node. If the trifoliate turns in its necrosis and can't gather sunlight, it means it can't feed the bean on this flowering node. If it can't feed that bean day to day, it's going to abort the bean, and it's going to end up on the ground and not into the combine. So what can we learn by getting out in the field and scouting for all these yellow spots? We can learn that we can manage bean variety and yield management through different factors. So what are some different factors? Well, we can choose a variety. We can use in-season imagery and ag technology to help us know where those diseases are at. So maybe we can manage them in years present with a variable rate planting, different variety selection as we go to different spots in the field. So there's definitely different opportunities. The one thing that you need to know is using and making decisions without data is just a guess. So get to your answer plot. At that session 3, we're going to be talking about all these things, and make sure that you know what you got in the field so we can help you manage yield for the next years to come.